Hey there. Ready to tackle a question that's been around forever. Like, who could the Antichrist actually be? We're going deep on this document. 7 candidates to be the Antichrist. And wow, it's got everything, historical figures, people alive right now, even some groups.
It's really amazing, like, how this Antichrist idea, it just sticks with people, across time and cultures. This document, it really shows that.
For sure. So let's jump in with, well, someone you might not know, but their story is wild. Candidate number 7, this guy, Michael Smiley. Dominican Swedish, tons of money, and absolutely convinced he was the Antichrist.
And he wasn't quiet about it either. This guy spent millions, millions, on websites, online ads, even ran for some leadership thing in the European Union, all to say, hey, I'm the Antichrist.
Like, imagine campaigning on being the ultimate bad guy, but here's where it gets really weird, like truly strange. Smiley's whole internet presence, it's gone, wiped. Like, who goes to that much effort to erase themselves online?
Right. Makes you wonder, especially when you think about his Project 666. It was this whole global money system, right? But using hand chips implanted with, you guessed it, 6 digits. Kind of sounds like the mark of the beast, no?
Straight out of Revelation, it makes you think, like, where's the line between really believing something and, reality? What happens when someone's convinced they're fulfilling prophecy, even if it's about being the ultimate villain?
It is a fascinating question
Yeah.
about, how belief works if people can fool themselves that much.
Okay, on to a name you might know, especially if you're into, well, the occult stuff. Candidate number 6, Aleister Crowley. I mean, this guy needs no intro. Occultist, magician, like the prophet of modern Satanism. His impact is huge.
Crowley, he's interesting because his influence, it goes way beyond just people who follow him. His Book of the Law, the whole message being do what thou wilt, that really changed how people thought.
Oh, totally. That focus on being free to do what you want, and let's be honest, indulging yourself, you see that in the 60s cultural revolution. Individualism, breaking the old rules of morality, it's all there.
That's true. Like, if the Antichrist's goal is to, trash Christian morality and replace it, Crowley kind of did that even after he died, maybe. His ideas, they're still shaping how we see freedom, morality, even spirituality.
He planted a seed that's still growing, basically. Okay, let's go back to the 90s for a minute. Our next candidate sparked a lot of conspiracy theories. Bill Gates.
Ah, yes, the Bill Gates conspiracies. Remember the numerology thing? Like, people took Bill Gates' third, turned it into ASCII code, added it all up, bam, 666. Maybe a bit much, but it got people thinking.
Definitely. But like beyond the numbers, there were real worries about Gates' power with Microsoft, right? All that money and him getting into global philanthropy, some people got uneasy.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? Because the Bible describes the Antichrist as, like, this deceptive guy, looks all nice, but has bad intentions. For some people, Gates fit that image perfectly.
Right. Here's this tech genius, changes how we use computers, but also has like crazy control over information and technology. It hit that nerve about where technology was going, which is still relevant, maybe even more now.
Oh, for sure. Technology, it can be good or bad. That's something we're dealing with all the time.
Okay, get ready for this one. Candidate number 4 is, well, the Pope. Or, I guess, the whole papacy thing.
Now, this might surprise you, but in some Protestant churches, they've believed for a long time that the Pope, is the Antichrist or has some of his traits.
Yeah, I'd heard about that, like how the Pope sits in the temple of God saying he's God's representative. Some people say that's like the Antichrist.
Exactly. And guess what? The numbers come up again. The Latin phrase, vicarius filii Dei, meaning vicar of the Son of God. That's the papal title you added up, 666.
Whoa, wild. And there's that papal staff with, like, Christ on the cross.
Powerful image, right?
Yeah.
And open to interpretation. Some see it as like a victory over Christ, which that's that idea of the Pope taking his authority,
Right, right. And if you look back at what the Catholic Church has done, like the Crusades, the Inquisition, even the abuse scandals, it's easy to see why some people connect that to, like, a powerful group pretending to be holy.
It's a tough topic, for sure, and sensitive.
Yeah.
But it does show how you can read religious texts and symbols so differently and end up with completely different ideas of good and evil.
Our next candidate, this is a more recent story and super unusual. Candidate number 3, José Luis de Jesus Miranda, claimed to be not only the reincarnation of the Apostle Paul and Jesus, but also, get this, the Antichrist.
Talk about an identity crisis.
All right.
But Miranda's story is compelling because he told his followers, millions of them, to get 666 tattoos. That's taking the mark of the beast, like literally.
There's the twist. Miranda's people, they thought they were the real Christians, free from sin, could do whatever they wanted because they were already saved. It's like flipping Christian morality on its head.
Yeah, Miranda's rise and fall, it's like a warning,
Yeah.
about charismatic leaders, how
Yeah.
they can twist religion for their own gain, and how easy it is for people to get sucked into extreme ideas, especially if it makes them feel like they belong, like they're certain about things.
It reminds you, you got to question anyone who says they have all the answers, especially if those answers involve blindly following them, right?
Exactly.
Okay, this one's big. Candidate number 2, the United Nations. Now we're getting into serious conspiracy theory land.
Yeah, the idea is the Antichrist isn't one person, but this powerful organization trying to control everything globally.
Right. Like the UN, they're all about global peace and security, but some people see that as fulfilling what the Bible says about the Antichrist bringing a fake peace so he can take over.
And there's the money angle, too. The UN, they have influence on global trade. Right? So that some people think they could create a system where everyone's tracked, controlled financially, like a modern mark of the beast where you can't buy or sell without it.
Plus, they've got military stuff going on, like peacekeeping missions. Sometimes they got to use force. Some people connect that to the fire from heaven stuff in Revelation.
Yeah, the UN, they're complicated. Whether you think they're good or bad, they've got power, that's for sure. And that power in the wrong hands could be used in ways that, kind of echo the whole Antichrist archetype.
All right, get ready for the last one, and it's really interesting. Candidate number 1, the Assyrian. This one gets into beliefs that are shared across Judaism, Christianity, and Islam.
Oh, yeah, it's like all these end times prophecies are converging. Jews are waiting for the Messiah, Christians for Jesus' second coming, Shia Muslims for the Mahdi. And in all three, there's this powerful enemy they're going to clash with, right?
And in the Bible, that enemy is often called the Assyrian. He's supposed to attack Israel and mess with the Third Temple.
Exactly. And in Islamic end time stuff, that role often goes to the Mahdi, who's going to conquer Jerusalem and beat the Jews.
So it's like all these different belief systems have these crazy parallels, all pointing towards this final battle. And here's where it gets even wilder. Some people think what's happening in Gaza right now, like the destruction there, that could be what triggers this apocalyptic dude to show up like it's prophesied.
Yeah, that whole region, it's a tinderbox. And, people interpret prophecy in so many ways. But for people who believe this stuff, those end time scenarios, they're powerful, man.
It's like everyone's got puzzle pieces, right? And they're trying to see how they fit to get this big picture. But what's so crazy to me is they're all working with the same story, like good versus evil, ultimate showdown.
Exactly. That story, it's been shaping us for, I don't know, thousands of years. Wars, revolutions, whole belief systems come from that. It shows, like deep down, we need to make sense of the world,
Yeah.
where we fit in, especially when things are messed up.
We're all searching for meaning, order, even if that order is scary. Like, gotta believe there's a plan, even if it includes something as freaky as the Antichrist.
Yeah.
Right. It's like the Antichrist, whatever form it takes, it is that fear of chaos, of the unknown, ultimate threat to feeling safe, to how we understand everything.
It's like the boogeyman everyone knows, right? Darkness we're waiting for, but also dreading.
And yet, we're also fascinated by the Antichrist. We love those evil stories, the idea of some powerful dude who just, flips everything we thought we knew.
It's like part of us roots for the bad guy, even though we know we shouldn't. Maybe because the Antichrist is, rebellion, rejecting the rules we've always had to follow.
Could be. The Antichrist, it's about choosing. Even if that choice leads to, everything blowing up, it's a reminder that, hey, we all got good and bad in us.
So we've looked at these 7 candidates, and it's obvious there's no easy answer. Depends how you interpret it all, right?
Oh, absolutely. And that's part of what makes the Antichrist idea so strong. It lasts. It's a mirror. Shows us our own fears, what we believe, our anxieties. Could be anything we imagine, pretty much.
It's like the Antichrist isn't so much a specific person or group, but more about that potential for darkness, for deception that's, in all of us. Humanity's got that in it.
That's a good point. Like the Antichrist, it symbolizes those forces that want to divide, control, destroy.
Okay, so what's this all mean for us, for the listener? What do we take away from all this Antichrist stuff?
I think the biggest thing is you got to think critically. There's so much info thrown at us these days. It's easy to get caught up in conspiracies, fear, all that. Got to be smart. Question what you hear, what you see. Look for proof. Logic, not just blindly believing someone else's take on things.
Yeah, like we need that inner BS detector, especially when it's about stuff this complex, this like emotionally heavy, like the Antichrist.
Exactly. And be careful of anyone saying they've got all the answers, promising easy fixes for tough problems.
Yeah.
The Antichrist, however it looks, that's often what it represents, like a fake promise of being certain, feeling safe.
Red flag, right? Be skeptical of anyone who says they're the only ones with the truth or tries to control you with fear, manipulation. That's classic Antichrist stuff.
For sure. And another thing, those forces the Antichrist represents, they're not just out there, they're in us too. Our selfishness, greed, being mean.
So it's not just blaming some enemy, but also looking at the darkness we could have inside ourselves. Tough, but gotta do it.
It's true. Fighting the Antichrist, in a way, it's fighting our own bad side, right? Resisting those urges to hate, be scared, divide.
Always a choice then. Love over hate, being understanding instead of judging, coming together instead of splitting apart. Those choices, they matter now, not just in some far-off apocalypse, but in our everyday life.
Absolutely. And that brings us to something important. If the Antichrist tool is deception, manipulation, then knowing stuff, being aware, those are our strongest weapons.
Knowledge is power, right? But how do we actually use this knowledge day to day? What can we do to fight those Antichrist-like forces you mentioned? It's like we've uncovered a lot, right? But now what? How do we actually use this stuff to deal with a world where, well, it seems like those Antichrist vibes are out there?
Yeah, it starts with seeing those forces even when they're subtle. The Antichrist, it doesn't always have a big 666 on its forehead. Sometimes it's like a charismatic leader playing on people's fears and hate, or it's fake news spreading around because people want easy answers when things are complicated. And sometimes, honestly, it's us just not caring enough, not fighting injustice.
Oh, that's so true. We think of the Antichrist as like this big bad villain, but what if the real danger is sneaky? Like a slow drip of negativity ruining our values, our compassion.
Exactly. Got to be on guard, question what you're told, and ask who wins from this? Who's being shut down, pushed aside? Are they making us afraid of someone else, making us hate them?
It's not just about finding some enemy out there, but checking ourselves too, right? Like, do we have biases? Are we part of the problem even if we don't realize it? Spreading negativity, dividing people.
Absolutely. Got to look inward. That's key. Ask the tough questions. Are we quick to judge, call people evil just because they think different? Do we only believe stuff that we already agree with, ignore anything that challenges us?
You need to keep checking that inner compass, right? Make sure we're not like drifting towards those Antichrist ways, fear, judging, dividing.
Right, right. Be aware of how those forces can sneak into our lives, our communities, even how we see the world. It's about being a critical thinker, being empathetic, and being willing to talk to people respectfully, even when it's hard.
A lot of what we talked about today, it's about how powerful believing is. Like what we believe, it shapes how we see the world, what we do, but how do we make sure our beliefs are like good ones? About stuff that's positive and makes life better.
That's where it gets really interesting. So if the Antichrist, it gets strong by using our fears, our insecurities, right?
Yeah.
Then its opposite, whatever that good force is, it has to work with love, compassion, understanding.
Instead of falling for fear and hate, we got to look for information, inspiration, stuff that lifts us up, brings us together, stuff that encourages us to think, to be kind, to see each other as human.
Exactly. It's a whole different mindset, like trying to understand instead of judging, valuing compassion, not putting people down, seeing that we're all connected, not focused on how we're different.
It's like we got to make a change inside. Choose hope, not fear. Choose love, not hate. Come together, not split apart.
I like that. That's a good way to put it. And that choice, we can make it every day. Little acts of kindness, trying to understand people who see things differently, working to connect, not build walls.
We're all in this together, right? It's like a big tapestry, and the choices we make, the threads we put in, that makes the whole pattern of the world.
Powerful image, yeah. We each got a part to play in fighting the darkness, making a world where love, compassion, justice, those are the things that win.
So we've gone deep on these Antichrist candidates, and I want to leave you with this. What if the real way to beat the Antichrist isn't some outside force, some savior? What if it's us waking up, our hearts, our minds, all of us together? What if the power to beat darkness, to stop being divided, it's inside each of us?
That's a deep question for sure, and a hopeful one. Something to think about as we try to figure out these crazy times.
Thanks for going on this journey with us. Remember, keep questioning, keep looking for truth, but most importantly, choose love. Always.